Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, the only place on YouTube to get your fix of European football. Christmas has gone for all of our viewers at this time, so we hope you had a great Christmas. I'm not going to tell you when we're filming this, but yeah, we are rapidly approaching New Year's, aren't we, Dukes? Once again, as you've noticed, McCubbin is no longer here, so you've got the double act itself. Doogie, how are you? You
I'm
right?
good, yeah, significantly better than McCubbs, who unfortunately is a little bit ill with the old Rona, throwback to 2020, but no, I am very well, thank you. I had a lovely Christmas, yeah. How are you?
Oh, yeah, my Christmas, wow, wild. Some stories to tell you after this. But yes, we've got New Year's Eve coming up, and as a result, we thought it's time to review all of 2022's biggest transfers, the best, the worst transfers. I think we put it out there on Twitter. Thank you to all of your answers that you sent back in. But actually, we're going to start with a review of the best game of the year because inspired by that World Cup final, aren't we, Dukes? There are a few contenders we have down here. Argentina versus France, Real Madrid versus Man City, and we've got Benfica versus Juventus. Let's kick off with your suggestion, Dukes. Where are you going with this? Because for me, I think the World Cup final takes the biscuit.
Yeah, I'd like to give a big shout out to Real Madrid 3, Man City 1, which finished 6-5 on aggregate.
Wow.
Real Madrid scored 3 goals after 90 minutes to knock Man City out of the Champions League when all looked done. I think Rodrigo got a double, I think Benzema got the other. That was a phenomenal comeback. And in terms of Champions League drama, that probably hasn't been topped really for a long time in my eyes at least. Probably since that PSG Barcelona tie a fair few years ago inspired by Neymar, the remontada. But I think it's probably recency bias, but I'm going to go with the World Cup final. I mean, what a game.
Yeah.
To be honest, until 65 minutes, it actually felt so one-sided that I never thought it would get here. But just the undulations of momentum and the fact that France could have won it in the last minute. Then they went the other end and Lautaro Martinez could have won it in the other minute. Then you had the drama of a penalty shootout and Emi Martinez putting out all the stops to get his side over the line. I thought it was a phenomenal game. Best World Cup final I can remember. Lots of people saying the best World Cup final ever. I'm a bit too young to give final judgment on that, but I thought it was phenomenal. So I'm probably going with the World Cup final.
A lot of people saying the quality in 2014 was better, but I mean, I completely... Less goals, less drama, less emotion at the end. I completely agree with you. Shout out to @Vigo_9 suggestion of Benfica 4, Juventus 3. I mean, it was just a great Champions League group stage for Benfica, wasn't it? Knocked Juve out of the Champions League for the first time since 2013. I mean, they went 4-1 up and Juve staged that comeback with Milik and McKennie, but it was a little too late. I don't think that was one of the best games of the year. I think it was a good game, don't get me wrong. But yeah, I mean, most of Real Madrid's Champions League, the Chelsea ties, they were exceptional as well. But yeah, as you say, that kind of Rodrigo's dying moments, turnaround, that was just unlike anything I've ever seen against probably the best team across the course of the 2 legs in Manchester City. So yeah, we're going to go for the World Cup final. Let us know what you think was the best game. Which ones we might have missed down below. I'm sure there were tons across the year that even we on Continental Club can't keep up with all the time. Right, let's move on to best transfer.
Ooh, a few more shouts then.
And there are quite a few good shouts here. I think it's been a pretty good year for big moves indeed. And Dukes, where are you going to kick off with this one?
Well, I think there's a very obvious one, which I'm going to leave out for now. I'm going to go with Kvicha Kvaratskhelia.
Yeah.
That came in from Jay Sadders. 10 to 12 million euro fee from Dinamo Batumi. I mean, no one knew about this guy prior to the summer, or if they did, they kept it very quiet. And I don't know how Napoli managed to sign him for such a small fee. And the guy has been frighteningly good. I think people have slightly forgotten during the World Cup. We've slightly lost the story of how well Napoli have done so far this season. And this guy's been absolutely central to it. And I think they've got a great chance of winning Serie A this year because a lot of their key men either didn't go to the World Cup or didn't go particularly deep in it, the likes of Anguissa, Zielinski, Osimhen, of course, as well. So I think they'll be absolutely fine in the back half of the year, provided they can keep all their players in January. But Kvicha has been absolutely exceptional, so entertaining, so fleet of foot, his vision, his speed off the mark as well. He's just a fantastic player to watch, and he's made a massive difference. I mean, 8 goals and 10 assists in 17 games in all competitions, has looked unintimidated by the Champions League stage as well. I think he was excellent in that group, which contained Liverpool, Ajax, Rangers, a really, really difficult group. So for me, he is the transfer of the year in terms of value and impact.
I mean, all of Napoli's transfers really have just been a success, haven't they? To replace Koulibaly, Kim Min-jae for almost half the price, to get sort of Raspadori through the door, Simeone as well, to sort of transform that side. Yeah, you're so right. Napoli do deserve a huge amount of credit. I like at Tottenham Hotspur, basically, Daniel's suggestion of Rodrigo Bentancur. He really enjoy this player, don't we? I mean, he's so good in the World Cup again, but so silky on the ball. Obviously signing deadline day in January last year. 39 appearances for Spurs since, 5 goals, 6 assists, but it's more than that really. It's just his all-round game. 4.1 tackles and interceptions per 90, 1.6 shots and key passes, and then his dribbles. It's just, when you see him on the ball breaking, it's his little movements where he breaks out in space and sort of relieves pressure on that back line. That's when you kind of think, what on earth were Juve doing?
What were they thinking? Same with Kulusevski.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, 2 guys that really could have made a difference for them this year. I don't think it's the best transfer though.
No.
I really don't think it is. Other good suggestion, Bruno Guimaraes.
Yeah.
At Sam J. Tonks 7. Yeah, I mean, what a great player. What a quality player. Well, we knew that. We knew that when it happened. It was one of those where we almost couldn't believe that they'd forced it through the door. I think that was this period where Newcastle were veering on a bit of a joke, sort of who were they going to sign, how are they going to splash their cash. And they went and got Bruno out of Lyon, 40 million. A fee that could rise to 40 million, which looks like an absolute snip. 31 appearances since, 8 goals, 3 assists. Rumours that Real Madrid want him already. He's that good. Didn't get loads of minutes in this Brazil side, but that's no bad thing, really, is it? Enzo Fernandez too. I really like that suggestion.
Well, look at the profit they can make on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, what a great player. 10 million euro fee from River Plate. Really, just he's destined for great things. However, Dukes, there is only really, in my opinion, one answer for this question. Erling Haaland.
I think you're going to say Erling Haaland. Yeah, I mean, 23 goals in 18 games, including 18 in 13 league games. So he's now got 24 league games left to score 15 goals to break the Premier League goal-scoring record. And I remember I actually had a bet with Michael McCubbin off this very show. I think it was a tenner, saying that he'd score over 25 league goals. And that seemed mental at the time. And what's he got? He's got 18 already in just 13 appearances so far. Man City, surprisingly not top of the league despite that. They've got a bit of a challenge going on with Arsenal. I don't see that lasting into the deep parts of the season. Agreed. To be honest. I don't think Arsenal have got enough goals on their side. I think they're currently on track to score 89. Pep's side have scored more than that, I think, in 3 of the last 5 years. And I'd back them to get close to 100 this year. And with that lack of Gabriel Jesus as well for the next couple of months, I think it's going to be very, very difficult for Arsenal to keep pace, but that's no shame in that. A second place for Arsenal would be an absolutely unbelievable season. The only thing that's holding me back from the Erling Haaland deal was it was significantly more money than Kvicha, and there was massive agent fees and money going to his father, etc. So in terms of value, yeah, maybe it shouldn't be included, but they can still make a profit when they sell him, if they do sell him in 2-3 years' time. So it's definitely got to be in contention. Would it be your number 1?
I think probably. We're talking the elite in terms of transfers, and they got him for £60 million, which really
it's nothing.
Is nothing compared to what some clubs are prepared to splash. And if you think they spent 40 million more on Jack Grealish, I'm not going to sit here and criticise Jack Grealish because I think he does way more than people give him credit for. But yeah, for the price they paid, for the return they're guessing, I don't think you can ask for anything more, really. I think that is maybe the transfer of the year. But yeah, the lower end, like sort of the economy transfer of the year, maybe we'll go for Kvicha.
Nice.
So that's a nice compromise. What do you guys think at home about the best transfer? Is it João Palhinha to Fulham? I think it could be. I don't know. But we can move on to worst transfers next. I'll kick this one off. I think Marc Cucurella to Chelsea. I really don't like it. I don't like it.
You don't like it at all?
At all. Well, for the price they paid, rising to £62 million potentially. Most expensive fullback of all time. He wasn't anywhere near that level. He was a good player for Brighton. He was a great player for Getafe before that. Obviously, Barcelona, I think, let him go, sort of one that they got wrong. But yeah, he's been often had to play like left centre half for Chelsea this term, hasn't he? He's not always been out on the wing back there.
And there's better left centre backs. If they wanted to play him there, there's better left centre backs for £60 million that they could have got.
Absolutely. I remember watching him against Leeds and I thought he looked really bad as well. He's only been trusted to start 2 of their 6 Champions League games as well. He's only finished the full 90, one of their last 6 league games too. So yeah, clearly He's not someone that's Potter's hugely convinced by yet, which is surprising considering that really that was one
Potter's man.
Yeah, Potter's man coming in.
Or at least
preceded him over from Brighton. So you'd have thought that he'd have been fine there. This comes in from @FredFQ_Bob. So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure about Marc Cucurella, but Dukes, is there anyone else you think goes ahead of him?
Well, I think his teammate Kalidou Koulibaly probably deserves a shout. £30 million on a 31-year-old. I actually wasn't totally against the signing at the time, but you can't really argue it's worked out so far. Sent off against Leeds, he's been in and out of the side, particularly since Potter took over. He's struggled to change from a back two at Napoli, or a four at the back, I should say, to a back three, and he's generally struggled with the Premier League. And it's not like there's much time for this signing to ever work out. He might turn out to be a Thiago Silva and carry on to play till he's 37, but I highly doubt it. That's the exception rather than the rule. So he probably deserves a shout. I think you've probably got to look at some injury-related ones as well. Unfortunately, I mean, Yolkstick 1 suggested Diego Carlos. He played 180 league minutes for Aston Villa before rupturing his Achilles. That was pretty brutal. Sasa Kalazic at Wolves cost a fair amount of money for them. Got injured 45 minutes into his debut, was pretty brutal. Paul Pogba hasn't played a minute for Juve so far. I know he was a free transfer, but still massive, massive wages. Romelu Lukaku's return to Inter Milan, hasn't gone to plan at all. Had a terrible World Cup as well, was clearly not fit in that Croatia game. It was actually really quite unfair and sad to see the amount of abuse he was getting online and racist abuse afterwards, which was obviously horrendous. But yeah, it just wasn't fit, wasn't at it, missed all those chances. Gravenberch, actually, surprisingly, has to probably deserve a mention from Garvit Batia 29. He started 2 League and Champions League games, 422 minutes in all, 0 goals, 0 assists. He's 19th in the squad for league minutes. And it feels like when other teenagers, midfielders like Bellingham, Gavi, Pedri, Musiala, are becoming some of the outstanding midfielders in world football right now, Gravenberch's sitting on the bench at Bayern.
Yeah,
and they're bringing in Konrad Laimer supposedly in January as well, so that just further puts him down the pecking order. I'd be slightly worried if I was Gravenberch.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think we actually expressed these concerns at the start of the year. Obviously, going to Bayern's a great move, but you have to play, and they've got so much quality in that squad. We've seen Sabitzer having probably his best season yet after a difficult sort of initial start to life at Bayern Munich squads, and I think there's some constant weird pressure on Nagelsmann. Really, I was really interesting reading about the Bundesliga, how essentially, because all the sports magazines and news reporters are really pressuring Bayern all the time, that's where all the focus is. The other teams don't have that kind of pressure and focus, and that's maybe what separates the two in terms of sort of Bayern are constantly under the spotlight to succeed. So if he's looking at Gravenberch and thinking he's not offering something, then he's not going to play him. And it's a shame. We saw him miss out in the World Cup squad. He deserves better, and I do think that maybe he should be pushing for a loan move of sorts just to kind of get out of the system at the moment. Because yeah, you're right. What a bit of a stinking transfer for him so far. I'm going to stick with.
Yeah, we do need to decide.
I'm going to stick with Cucurella personally, just for the price they've paid and almost how pointless it was. But I would almost be tempted. I don't know, I think it's harsh on Gravenberch, isn't it? Where would you go? I'll give you the deciding vote on this one.
I think any injury-related one is just a bit too cruel, to be honest, because it's not their fault. I think Cucurella is a good shout. Gravenberch's so young, and he got offered the chance to go to Bayern Munich. It's quite difficult to turn it down, and costs significantly less than Marc Cucurella. I'm going with Marc Cucurella.
Okay, there it is.
Decided.
It's our worst transfer.
We need an anvil, like Ben.
Case closed. Moving on to Team of the Year. This is going to be a fun one. This is going to be a real fun one. I'm going to start on this one. At JS Adder's suggestion, the England women's sides. Honestly, I love that in the summer. I think there's such. This is obviously massively biased, and I apologise to all of our sort of international viewers. I do just think that what they've done, I really like Weigmann, the coach. I think she's awesome, and I love the kind of the characters in the team, the quality. I mean, I don't think they necessarily play the best football out of the teams. Certainly at the Women's Euros, but they really kind of they were everything that was right about the Euros when it was the men's team, but without all the kind of negativity surrounding it in terms of, sort of the fan culture, etc. And those scenes at the end when they won it, I just loved it. I love Lucy Bronze. I think she's amazing. Toon up front. There's just so many quality names. Jill Scott's gone on to be sort of queen of the jungle.
Yeah.
To that scene of her.
What a year for her.
What a year for Jill Scott. Maybe we should put her in somewhere. But yeah, I just think it's great. It's great to talk about the more that they were so great. And that final against Germany was a classic, wasn't it? That German equaliser, the flick goal, but then to go down the other end and get the winner, what in extra time. It was just such a great moment at Wembley. It sort of rectified the wrongs of the men's inability to get over the line there. So yeah, I love the England women's team, what they've done. And yeah, I think they're a strong contender for Team of the Year. However, there's lots of other teams that do deserve a shout out. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, yeah, I echo Henry's thoughts on the Lionesses. I thought they were brilliant. I mean, Henry Parabag suggested Argentina. Again, recency bias, it's quite difficult to look past them, to be honest. I mean, they also only lost, one game in 43? I mean, they went on that 36-match unbeaten run. Crazy to think that it was the only team that beat them was Saudi Arabia. And they won a Copa America, Finalissima, and World Cup in that run. Obviously not all in this calendar year, but quite difficult to beat top Argentina, in my opinion. Real Madrid as well, that phenomenal Champions League run, which we mentioned earlier, with their victory over Man City as well. That's difficult to ignore. Thought they outplayed Liverpool in that final as well, deserved winners of a 14th Champions League. That was incredible. Morocco, Alex GGMU suggestion. What a story at the World Cup. No one saw that coming. First African side to make the semi-finals. United the whole sort of Arab, North African world behind them. Actually, many Europeans as well were totally behind them as well. That was a phenomenal story. That built on so much defensive solidity, and they had a lot of injuries along the way as well. So I think Morocco are a deserved shout as well. Vigo 9 suggested Freiburg, which is a more niche shout, but they've had a great 12 months or so, now pushing for Champions League football. Who would have saw that coming a few years ago? Sam J. Tonk 7 suggested Arsenal, which I think is ridiculous, to be honest.
I'm not putting them in.
I don't think Arsenal are Team of the Year. They've had a great 14 games or 15 games in the Premier League, but missing out on the Champions League football last year. They can't be Team of the Year.
What do you think of Frankfurt as a suggestion? Because I think to go and win Europa League, get into the Champions League for the first time in 70 years, was it? And then to be now currently in the top 4 of German football and to have got through their Champions League group stage, playing nice football, having lost some of their key players, I really think Frankfurt deserves to be considered up there, certainly higher than Freiburg for all of the greatness that Freiburg have been pulling off recently, DFB Pokal final, etc. It's a tricky one. For me, it's a short list between maybe Argentina and England women. But
and maybe Morocco in there as well. Oh, it's difficult. Milan maybe deserve a shout as well. First Scudetto in 11 years, but they are kind of off the pace this year. That's the only thing that's holding me back.
It's tricky.
I'm going to give it to Argentina, to be honest. As good as England women were, I'm giving it to Argentina. My personal opinion, unless you want to overrule.
Frankfurt. Argentina won the World Cup. Those 4 million people on the streets of Buenos Aires losing their minds.
When the Lionesses win the Women's World Cup, you're going to be our Team of the Year.
Yes, you heard it here
You're
first.
a second place this
year. Team of the Year, done. Player of the Year. Let's crack on here. This is it's tricky again, isn't it, really? So we've got 4 suggestions, 4 big names so far. We'll start, I think, with Kylian Mbappe. That comes from at Hamoud Salah 11. I mean, for all the hoo-ha about his future, which we saw, April, was it? May time?
Yeah.
Will he stay? Will he go?
And then in September again.
Yeah, September again, that whole ridiculous drama with Neymar. You can't fault what he gives back on the pitch. I mean, 2021-22, 28 goals, 17 assists and 35 league and games. 22-23, 12 goals, 2 assists and 14 league and games. And then you'll know about his World Cup performance, 8 goals, 2 assists. Definitely going to be considered probably the greatest World Cup player of all time if he continues on his trajectory right now, which is a pretty great place to be. I think he's sort of shed that sweet boy personality, and he does do a lot of good things. He sort of refuses to advertise for fast food, etc. I think he's very he's got certain...
took on the FFF, didn't he?
Yeah, he's got certain kind of principles which he stands by, but you can just see he knows who he is now. He knows what he represents and the status that which he occupies, which is one of the best, 2-3 players in the world, maybe the best in the world at this moment in time. I think it's pretty hard to beat what Kylian Mbappe put together this year, even though Benzema, for example, was the Ballon d'Or winner. I still don't think he's been at the level of Mbappe. But where would you go with it, really?
Yeah, I think Benzema's being held back for being Player of the Year, as much as he was the Ballon d'Or winner and a deserved winner on the basis of last season. His start to this season has been injury affected, missed the World Cup, of course. You know, that I don't think he can be Player of the Year on the basis of that. As you say, Mbappe, 8 goals and 2 assists in the World Cup, consistently rises to the biggest occasions, has probably been outplayed by Neymar and Messi for PSG so far this season.
I agree.
Actually went into the World Cup, not under pressure per se, but I was interested to see how it went for him. And he was just brilliant. Yeah, he had a quiet quarter-final, he had a quiet semi-final, but to score a World Cup final hat-trick, I think that might only be achieved sort of 4 or 5 times in the next 150 years. Like, it is a really rare occasion. And to score a hat-trick, yeah, fair enough. Knockout hat-tricks are really rare. Prior to Gonzalo Ramos, earlier in the last 16, it hadn't been done since 1990. So to do it in the final, even rarer. So that deserves enormous respect. But I think I'm probably going to give it... It's difficult with Messi because he wasn't at his best last year. But then, so far this year, 12 goals, 14 assists in 19 games in all competitions. Deserved Golden Ball winner at the World Cup. Messi and Mbappe is a real difficult one. I also think Alisson deserves a shout. I think he's been phenomenal over the last 12 months, this calendar year for Liverpool. I think they'd be in far worse situation. They would no way near have been competing for 4 trophies last year had it not been for him, although they did have a lot of help from lots of their forwards last year. I don't know, Mbappe, Messi, it's a really tight one. Who do you want to give it to?
I actually think Mbappe. I really do. I just think...
On the basis of a whole calendar year.
Yeah, the whole calendar year. Even though Messi's season last year for PSG was underrated. That's why this comes from Henry Parabag, by the way. Thank you for suggesting Messi.
We never have thought of it.
No, we do appreciate it. Controversial. I'm going to give it to Mbappe because it'd be easy to sort of steamroll the Argentina awards. But yes, right. Next up, biggest flop.
Tasty.
Always good fun. This one, Dukes, where do you want to start on this one?
Well, we mentioned Cristiano Ronaldo a bit on our previous episode of Continental Club, so go watch that, and we talked about whether he should have gone to Sporting CP over Al Nassr, which it does look like he's going to do, although by the time this video goes out in a few days' time, maybe that will have all been decided or have fallen through, we're not quite sure, so go check that out. Cristiano Ronaldo is a great shout, to be honest, flop of the year. Personally, though, I think an even better shout might be Edouard Mendy. Suggested by @DaveGreen. He's had a 63.9% save percentage over the last 12 months. To put it into context, a really top goalkeeper would probably operate over 75%. A really top of the range goalkeeper probably over 80%. Just 1 clean sheet and 12 goals against this term. He's been dropped at club level for Kepa Arrizabalaga, who is seemingly much better with it. Well, no, he is much better with his feet than Edouard Mendy. I think he had quite a poor World Cup for Senegal as well.
The
was
Netherlands
at fault
game.
for 2 goals in the Netherlands game. They did qualify to their group as second place, and it wasn't much he could have. Actually, no, even one of the England goals. I think it was the Jordan Henderson one, or maybe the Harry Kane one. The Harry Kane one his positioning was quite poor for that as well. I don't want to hammer him because he's done really well to go from Rennes to Chelsea, get nominated for Goalkeeper of the Year or whatever it was when Chelsea won the Champions League. But his fall off since then has been pretty severe. So for me, flop of the year. It's probably Cristiano Ronaldo, then I'm going Edouard Mendy.
Interesting. I think at Yan Yo Unchained's suggestion of Rafinha is an interesting one. I mean, it's more maybe in the category of worst transfer. He cost Barcelona 58 million euros. Precious Barcelona money, it must be said. 2 goals and 2 assists in 6 La Liga starts and 7 sub-appearances. So clearly, Xavi isn't sort of overly enamoured by him, and bear in mind Ansu Fati's coming back to fitness, and his goal rate this year has been pretty epic when he has played. Only 2 assists in the Champions League as well when they crashed out. I still think he did enough in the back end of the lead season to not quite deserve this. He was still starting for Brazil at the World Cup, even though I thought he looked pretty bad. So yeah, Rafinha, honourable mention. I just think Jadon Sancho. I really think Jadon Sancho. I'd love to give it to Cristiano Ronaldo for all of his nonsense, but at least he was scoring goals last season for United. Sancho, this comes from @eBay11. I just can't believe that it's gone as badly as it has, really, because we remember getting quite excited about this. He's only scored 5 league goals and posted 4 assists in the 18 months he's been at Manchester United. That is so bad. 3.6 shot creating actions per 90. It might sound all right, but that's the lowest it's ever been in his career as a pro. It was well over 5 during his time at Dortmund, and that was really, that was producing. His goal creation output was so much higher there. He looks devoid of confidence, sent away to train by himself during this winter window, lost out enough space in the England side. For a long time, it looked like he really was going to be the guy for England. Now he's nowhere near the squad. Yeah. Nowhere near that Gareth Southgate's plans for the starting. Certainly in attack, and after the World Cup, even further away, considering how successful players like Rashford were coming back in. I just think Jadon Sancho, to have gone from Dortmund, to got the big money move he wanted to Manchester United, to have not had the professionalism to turn that into a successful stint there. You can't afford to spend that much money on a player that should be doing well, and for him to be so bad. I'm not surprised that Erik ten Hag seems a bit peeved by him. For me, he's my flop of the year, but if you want to go for Mendy, I'd accept that, but I just think Sancho's
probably been more dramatic, and he costs far more money, an extra £50 million at least on Mendy, I think, or around that figure at least. My only thing with Sancho is that he was quite unfortunate that he joined and then Solskjaer was fired, then Rangnick took over, now Erik ten Hag. He's had a very turbulent time at Man United so far, readapting to a new country, or his original country, but having been in Dortmund for quite a while. Seems like, he might have gone slightly off the boil, but it's interesting. It's interesting with Sancho and what happens next. It's quite difficult to see him breaking back into that Man United starting 11 anytime soon, especially if they buy a striker in January, because Marcus Rashford is going to be very difficult to shift on the left wing, and then they just signed an £80 million winger on the right in Anthony, who is clearly Ten Hag's guy. So
it looks good as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, he's had a very good start, to be fair. Probably never going to be worth £80 million. I don't think very few players are, but fair play to him. He started pretty well at Man United, but I'm pretty happy for you to go Sancho.
All right, we're going to go for Sancho. Let us know around Europe if there's any other flops that you think we've maybe missed out in our list. We had other suggestions of Juventus. I think that's a bit harsh. They're all right. They're third in Serie A. They've had a
maybe they're bored.
Yeah, they're the boring team of the year. We could just had Chelsea in general suggested, which I kind of rate. But we're going to go for Sancho for our biggest flops. That concludes our award show. Let us know what you think of all of our suggestions in the comments down below. And we're going to move on to big match predictions. All right, guys, it's time for big match predictions. We didn't do any last week. However, we did decide to give McCubbin 3 points for his successful suggestion that Argentina would win that World Cup final on penalties. And that means that he is catching us up. As you can see on the scoreboard, Dougie's on 30, I'm second on 21, and McCubbs is near us on 18 points. So yes, a good boost.
Nervous?
No. No. Normal service will resume the rest of the season. We've still got loads of rounds to go. We've got tons and tons of weeks to go, provided none of us are fired. So and we're going to kick off the return of big match predictions with Villarreal versus Valencia. A bit of a tasty clash on the 31st of December, 3:15 kickoff. 9th versus 10th, 2 points between the pair of them. Villarreal obviously recovering from losing their manager, Unai Emery, to Aston Villa. Valencia, you never quite know what you're going to get from them. Dougie, how do you see this one going?
Well, it's an interesting one. I think, as you say, they're both languishing in mid-table, but it's really, really tight up to between 10th and about 4th in La Liga. And it feels like Villarreal are just, as you say, bouncing back from losing Unai Emery. They brought in Quique Setien. The football has been typically very, very high possession, but a bit chaotic under Setien. I've seen a lot of Spanish football pundits and writers that I follow on La Liga, on Twitter, talking about La Liga and saying Villarreal have just been, not probably as together as they are under Unai Emery. And it's quite an interesting appointment to go from Unai Emery, known as a very defensive coach, to Quique Setien, the completely opposite. And it just hasn't really clicked so far. Just 2 wins and from their opening 4 games under Quique Setien. And the strikers have sort of struggled all season, either with injury. Danjuma has missed a number of games, but he's only got 2 goals. Gerard Moreno, 2 goals in 6 games as well, was so good. Was it the year before last, Gerard Moreno? I get my seasons muddled up now. I'm showing my age, but he has been very good for Villarreal in the past, but not so good so far. And their top scorer is a young midfielder called Alex Baena, who's got 4 goals in 13 league games. So they really need to get that act together going forward. So I think Valencia probably go into this as marginal favourites. Would you agree with that, Henry?
Yeah, I would actually agree with that too. I think they're helped by the fact that kind of their regulars, only Yunus Musa and Cavani went to the World Cup. Well, Musa was really good, wasn't he?
He was great.
He looked great. Cavani, less so. Maybe recovering from his knocking out of the VAR box, was it?
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, he's been decent since he went there. 4 goals, 1 assist in 7 league games this season. Yeah, I mean, they've got a lot riding on the next month, don't they? They've got the sort of Supercopa semi-final against Real Madrid to look forward to on the 11th of January. And their most recent game was a 3-0 win over Betis, 10th of December. I mean, maybe that's too long ago now to sort of consider momentum. But Gattuso, I think he's sort of a nice fit, isn't he, at Valencia at this moment in time. This is a massive derby, it must be said.
Yeah.
These sort of Spanish East Coast derby, both so close to each other. So yeah, I mean, what a way to sort of end the year in that part of town. I'm going to go for a Valencia victory on this one. I echo your concerns with the Setien style of football, even though it's fun, isn't it? I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to Valencia.
Fair enough. Well, we did call up McCubbs in his sickbed at home, and he's gone 1-1. So he will be contributing to this week's predictions, but you won't know his thoughts, but just imagine what McCubbs would say. You went 2-1 Valencia. I think, both teams might struggle after 6 weeks without a game. It might be particularly scrappy. I'm going to go 1-0 Valencia, but hopefully there are more goals to come in our next 2 games.
There we go, all backing Valencia. Villarreal, prove us wrong. Okay, next over to France. We've got Lens versus PSG. This is on Sunday, the 1st of January at 7:45 p.m. First versus second.
Who'd have thought that?
In Ligue 1, 5 points between them. So Lens, I mean, this is huge. This is huge in the context of, can Lens stick with PSG over the next few months? Do you reckon they can do it?
No, to be honest. But it's been fun. It's been really fun. I think, if you'd said at the start of the season that after 15 league games, Lens would have lost 1 of those games and be 5 points off PSG and 6 points ahead of 4th place Marseille, so in the driving seat to get Champions League football next year, they'd have absolutely bitten your hand off. They've been absolutely exceptional. It's been built off the back of a really solid defence. Only Barcelona, Juventus and PSG have conceded fewer than their 10 league goals. And they do have goals on their side themselves. Their top scorer is Lewis Openda, who probably should have played more for Belgium at the World Cup, particularly as we said earlier with Lukaku so out of form as well. He's got 7 goals in 12 Ligue 1 games. They've got 32-year-old Florent Sotoka. He's got 6 goals and 5 assists in the league as well. And they finished 7th last year, so Franck Hassé is doing a really good job at Lens. Deserves an enormous amount of credit. But in terms of this game, I can only really see a PSG victory. Although having said that, Henry, so many of their players went deep into the World Cup, in contrast to Valencia and Villarreal we were talking about earlier. We're not quite sure what sort of state they'll be in.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, Messi and Mbappe in the final. Messi now currently in Argentina.
Moods in different moods.
Yeah, exactly. Neymar sort of miraculously recovered from that ballooned ankle to sort of feature in that Croatia game.
Didn't quite look at full fitness there as well.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Marquinhos, Hakimi obviously got to the semi-final. Nuno Mendes is out until the end of January. So yeah, I mean, if there's one team that's going to suffer these losses, it's maybe PSG. But that's still a significant number of players who are out there at the moment. They've got a big sort of Champions League fixture against PSG to consider, against Bayern Munich to consider, and that is they will be putting a lot of their eggs in that basket.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it's when you consider that a lot of the players we've said are missing are in their forward line. Neymar 20 league goal contributions, Messi 17, and Mbappe 14. After that, it's not always great. I think Hugo Ekitike's had a bit of a tough season since he's been there. Probably hasn't. It's mildly predictable from that move over from Reims in the summer. Players like Renato Sanchez haven't really featured too much as well. So it's a lot more intriguing this than perhaps it's sort of set out to be. And on that basis, I do think that Lens could get a point in this. I don't think they're going to get a victory. But PSG haven't always, it's not like they always blitz these teams in these kind of matches. They do seem to get unstuck every now and then. The return after the World Cup, as you say, loads of emotions running high. I'm going to back Lens for a 1-1 draw.
1-1, love that. Well, McCubbs went 2-0 to PSG. It does feel like they're going to have to be sort of, well, not necessarily carried by their midfield over the next few weeks, but as you say, Vitinha didn't play that much, Renato Sanchez didn't play that much. Marco Verratti didn't go, obviously, to the World Cup at all. And as long as he hasn't been clubbing too much over the last few months, then I'm sure he'll be in a great shape to dominate, Ligue 1 as he often does in the deeper stages of the Champions League. I'm going to go, I actually think they'll get the job done. I think it will be 2-1 to PSG. I don't think there'll be loads of goals given their forward line, will either be tired or slightly coming back from injury as well. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
There we go. PSG to beat Lens according to Dougs. Fair enough. Okay, our final game, and this is an absolute cracker once again.
Huge.
Inter Milan versus Napoli, Wednesday the 4th of Jan. I will be watching, 7:45 p.m. 5th versus 1st in the table. 11 points between them, which actually I sort of forget what a difficult sort of start to the campaign Inter Milan have had. I reckon, I mean, the question, Dougie, is can Napoli pick up from where they left off? Because they were absolutely flying before this World Cup kicked in.
Yeah, absolutely they were, and they've beaten really difficult opposition so far this season. I think there's only one defeat so far this year against Liverpool in the Champions League, but they've already beaten Lazio, Milan, Roma, Sassuolo, Atalanta in the league. But they do have some difficult tests. They do want to hit the ground running. They've got Inter, Juventus and Roma in their next 5 league games. And I think, given the fact that lots of their forwards and players didn't go that deep in the World Cup, that they can keep that momentum going. In contrast, Inter Milan wasn't a great World Cup for a lot of their players, particularly Lukaku and Lautaro Martinez.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, what's weird about Inter is that every now and then they play a game where you're like, no, they are still really good.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, that Barcelona game at the Camp Nou was an absolute classic, wasn't it? They were stunning in that game, and yet they've gone and lost 4 out of the last 8 league games, and
I think that's 4 of their first league games.
4 of their first 8 league games. They've stumbled and hiccuped at points where they really shouldn't have at the moment. I think Lukaku, maybe that signing has been a bit of a distraction. There's lots of talk really about their sort of 2 centre halves in January, where they're going to go Skriniar and Vrij, both out of contract. What is at the end of the campaign? I think it looks like they're going to have to move one of them on at some point, so that defence is going to need sort of shifting up. But yeah, it's tricky. I mean, the only thing I'd say, they've got a pretty good clean bill of health going into this game. Dalbert and Joaquin Correa they're the only players that are out. But you know, they've obviously got Dzeko as well up front, so it's not too much of a problem. Dzeko's been really good, by the way, for Inter Milan, and continued to be, even with Lukaku arriving. So yeah. I mean, what are you going to go for this one? I think it's
difficult. I think under Simone Inzaghi, Inter have kind of played their better football in the Champions League over the last couple of years. I mean, they were close to winning the title last year, of course, but put in a really great display against Liverpool, I remember, in the Champions League last year. Same in the group stage this year. I think they reserved their best football for the Champions League. Their form recently in Serie A has actually been pretty good. I think they've only lost 1 of their last 7 league games. But it feels like they probably don't have that same consistency and at least defensive solidity that they did in those Conte days. For that reason, I'm actually going to go with quite a comfortable Napoli victory. I nearly said Inter victory, I meant Napoli victory. I'm going to go 3-1 to Napoli, absolute goal fest.
3-1, I think. What did McCubs go for?
McCubs went 1-0 Napoli.
1-0 Napoli. I just think it's going to be a slow start for both of these two teams. I'm going to go for I feel boring saying it, but I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw.
Oh, I thought you were going to go 0-0. I was like, you cannot.
No. Not that boring. But yeah, that's it. All right, 1-1 here. That's big match predictions for another week. Let us know if you think we've got them right as per. And that's it for Continental Club for another year.
2022.
Guys, we really do appreciate how much you stick with us and enjoy the channel. We appreciate all the comments you send, etc., and your contributions to the show. Genuinely, have an amazing New Year's Eve. Stay safe, etc., and all of that. Do you have any messages?
No. I echo those thoughts. We'll see you in 2023 as Football Daily evolves once again, getting bigger and better. But we will be back at the East Dulwich Tavern. Thank you very much to the East Dulwich Tavern for having us, of course. I actually won't be here next week because I'm on holiday. So it'll be Henry, McCubs, and probably a member of the Football Daily team. Maybe they get in a guest. Who knows? Something to look forward to.
Absolutely. Yeah. Have a great New Year's. The football never ends. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye. Take care.